The first contact between humanity and the Valith happened on a quiet Tuesday morning. The aliens didn't arrive with the loud roar of engines or bright flashes of light. Instead, their ship appeared silently above the Earth, hovering like a second moon over the Pacific Ocean. It was massive, smooth, and glowing faintly with a soft blue hue that made it look almost peaceful. People around the world stopped what they were doing to stare at the screens broadcasting live footage of the event. Some whispered prayers, others shouted in excitement, but everyone felt the same thing: awe. The Valith themselves were unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall, slender beings with translucent skin that shimmered like water under sunlight. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their voices sounded like a mix of wind chimes and flowing water when translated into human speech. They called themselves explorers, seekers of knowledge, and they claimed to have been watching Earth for many years from afar. Their leader, Kalnor, spoke through a communication device, his tone calm and curious. He said they admired humanity's creativity, pointing to the music, art, and stories they had intercepted from Earth's broadcasts. A team was quickly assembled to meet with the Valith. Among them was Daniel Harper, a linguist known for his work decoding ancient languages. His job was to help bridge the gap between human and alien ways of speaking. Rachel Lopez, a biologist fascinated by extraterrestrial life, joined him. Completing the group was Stephen Blake, a military officer chosen to ensure humanity's safety during the encounter. Together, they boarded a small shuttle that rose into the sky, heading toward the alien ship. When they stepped inside the Valith vessel, they were greeted by an environment unlike anything they'd ever seen. The walls seemed alive, pulsing gently as if breathing. There were no sharp edges or corners. Everything was curved and smooth, designed for comfort rather than function. Kalnor welcomed them warmly, explaining that his people valued peace above all else. "We wish to learn from you," he said, his voice melodic yet firm. "But we must understand who you truly are." At first, everything went smoothly. The Valith asked questions about human history, culture, and beliefs. Daniel did his best to explain, choosing words carefully to avoid misunderstandings. Rachel shared insights about Earth's ecosystems, while Stephen remained quiet, his hand resting near his weapon just in case. But then, something unexpected happened. During one conversation, Kalnor mentioned that his people had discovered something strange among Earth's broadcasts: war films. "What are these?" Kalnor asked, tilting his head slightly. "They show your kind fighting each other with great intensity. Are these records of events that occurred, or are they merely stories?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "They're both," he said slowly. "Some are based on real events, like battles from our past. Others are fictional, created for entertainment." He tried to downplay their significance, adding, "But those times are behind us now. We've learned from our mistakes." Kalnor studied him closely, his glowing eyes unreadable. "If you do not mind, we would like to watch these films, to better understand your nature." Stephen frowned but didn't object. After all, how dangerous could old movies be? Little did they know, this simple request would change everything. As the shuttle returned to Earth later that day, none of them realized the storm brewing ahead. A storm born not from weapons or armies, but from the power of storytelling. The Valith began watching the war films with a mixture of curiosity and unease. At first, they chose an older movie called Steel Horizon *, a story about soldiers fighting on a distant battlefield. The aliens gathered in their observation chamber, their glowing eyes fixed on the screen as explosions lit up the darkened room. To them, the images were strange and unsettling, but also fascinating. They had never seen anything like it before. Kalnor leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Is this how your kind resolves disagreements?" he asked, turning to Daniel Harper, who was seated nearby. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He had been invited to watch alongside the Valith to help explain what they were seeing. "No," Daniel replied quickly. "Not anymore. These movies are, well, They're dramatizations. They're meant to entertain or tell a story, not show how we live now. Talavik, one of the Vyleth council members, raised her voice. But these weapons, they exist, do they not? And the battles, are they based on real events? Daniel nodded reluctantly. Yes, some of them are. But those wars happened long ago. Humanity has changed since then. We've learned to resolve conflicts without violence. The Vyleth exchanged glances, their shimmering bodies rippling faintly as if disturbed by the discussion. Zinar, another council member, spoke up. Perhaps these films are exaggerations, meant to explore themes rather than reflect truth. In our own history, we have stories that depict conflict, though we have never acted upon such impulses. Kelnor seemed to consider this but remained silent. As the film progressed, the Vyleth grew more troubled. Scenes of soldiers charging across beaches under heavy fire left them visibly shaken. One particularly intense moment showed a group of men being ambushed, their cries echoing through the chamber. Rachel Lopez, who had joined Daniel for the viewing, noticed how the aliens recoiled at the sounds of pain and destruction. This is difficult to watch, Kelnor admitted after the film ended. If these events truly occurred, it raises questions about your nature. Are you capable of such cruelty? Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady. We're not proud of our past. Those wars caused immense suffering, but they also taught us valuable lessons. Today, we work hard to prevent such tragedies from happening again. The Vyleth didn't seem entirely convinced. Over the next few days, they continued watching more films, each one offering a different perspective on war. Some focused on heroism and sacrifice, while others highlighted the horrors and futility of conflict. With each viewing, the aliens' initial fascination turned into something closer to suspicion. Talavik, in particular, became increasingly vocal about her concerns. These films reveal a side of humanity we did not anticipate, she said during one session. Even if they are fictional, they suggest a mindset, a willingness to embrace violence when faced with challenges. Stephen Blake, who had been observing quietly, finally spoke up. You're missing the point, he said firmly. These movies aren't endorsements of war. Many of them critique it, showing its cost and consequences. If anything, they remind us why we should avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. Kelnor looked at him thoughtfully. And yet, the fact that you create such stories suggests that violence remains a part of your identity. How can we trust that you will not turn against us? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered. Back on Earth, news of the Vyleth's reaction spread quickly, sparking debates among governments and citizens alike. Some argued that sharing war films had been a mistake, while others believed honesty was the best policy. Meanwhile, aboard the alien ship, tensions simmered as the Vyleth struggled to reconcile their earlier impressions of humanity with what they were now witnessing on the screen. As the days passed, it became clear that the simple act of watching movies had opened a rift between the two species, one that would require more than words to mend. The tension between the Vyleth and humanity grew thicker with each passing day. Back on Earth, people were glued to their screens, watching news reports about the aliens' reactions to war films. Some argued that the Vyleth were overreacting, while others feared their judgment might lead to disaster. Governments scrambled to prepare for the worst-case scenario, unsure if the aliens would decide to leave, or worse, take action against Earth. On the alien ship, divisions among the Vyleth deepened. Kelnor called a council meeting to discuss what they had learned so far. The observation chamber was filled with murmurs as the Vyleth debated the meaning behind the films. Talavik stood at the center, her voice sharp and unyielding. These movies prove that humanity cannot be trusted, she said. They show a species obsessed with violence, willing to destroy itself and others. Zinar, who had always been more open-minded, disagreed. We must not jump to conclusions, he countered. These are works of fiction, created to explore ideas. They do not define an entire species. Perhaps they even serve as warnings, reminders of what humanity once endured. Kellenor listened carefully but remained troubled. He turned to Daniel Harper and Rachel Lopes, who had been invited to attend the meeting. "You say these films are not accurate reflections of your current society," he began. "Yet they depict events that did happen. How can we know you will not repeat such actions?" Rachel stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "History is complicated," she explained. "Yes, humans have fought wars, but we've also built incredible things. Medicine, technology, art. We've learned from our mistakes and worked hard to create a better world. You've seen evidence of that yourselves in our efforts toward peace and cooperation." Stephen Blake added his perspective. "War isn't something we celebrate anymore. Look at how many countries work together today. Look at organizations like the United Nations, dedicated to solving problems without violence. That's the direction we're heading in." Tedlovic wasn't convinced. "Your words sound hopeful, but actions speak louder. You still have weapons, armies, and conflicts. How can we trust that you won't turn them against us?" The room fell silent. Even Daniel, usually quick with answers, struggled to respond. He knew Tedlovic had a point. Humanity wasn't perfect, and its past couldn't simply be erased. But he also believed that progress mattered, that the steps taken toward peace were just as important as the destination. Back on Earth, public opinion became divided. Some felt the Valeth were being unfair, judging humanity based on outdated stereotypes. Others worried that sharing war films had been reckless, giving the aliens a skewed view of human nature. Captain Stephen Blake faced criticism from his superiors, who accused him of failing to manage the situation properly. Frustrated, he argued that honesty was the only way forward. "If we tried to hide our history, they'd find out eventually," he said. "At least this way, we're showing them we're willing to confront our flaws." Meanwhile, the Valeth continued their analysis. They watched documentaries next, including one about World War II. Unlike the fictionalized films, this footage showed real battles, real suffering, and real atrocities committed by humans against one another. For the first time, the Valeth encountered undeniable proof of humanity's capacity for destruction. The sight of cities reduced to rubble and families torn apart left them visibly shaken. Kellenor called another emergency meeting with the human delegation. His tone was stern, almost accusing. "You told us you had changed," he said, "but now we see evidence of horrors beyond imagination. How can we believe you when your own history contradicts your claims?" Daniel Harper hesitated, searching for the right words. "Change isn't easy," he admitted. "It takes time, effort, and courage to face the darkest parts of ourselves. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to build a future where those horrors never happen again." Rachel nodded in agreement. "We're not asking you to forget our past. We're asking you to see how far we've come, and to help us keep moving forward." For a moment, Kellenor looked uncertain. The Valeth Council members exchanged glances, their glowing forms flickering faintly. It was clear that trust had been damaged, and repairing it wouldn't be easy. Yet, amidst the doubt and fear, a small spark of hope remained. A chance for both sides to learn and grow together. The situation reached a breaking point when Tedlovic, the most skeptical member of the Valeth Council, demanded immediate action. "Enough delays," she said firmly during a heated meeting aboard the alien ship. "We cannot risk staying near a species so prone to violence. It is time to leave this planet and cut all ties with humanity." Kellenor hesitated, his glowing eyes dimming slightly as he weighed her words. He understood her concerns, but also knew that abandoning contact would mean losing an opportunity to learn from humanity's complexity. Before making a decision, he turned to Zinar, who had always advocated for patience. "What do you suggest?" Kellenor asked. Zinar thought carefully before responding. "Perhaps there is still a way to test their claims of progress," he said. "Let us observe them directly, on their own world. If we see evidence of the peace they speak of, then we can reconsider our stance. But if their actions contradict their words, we will know the truth." The idea sparked debate among the council members. Some argued that visiting Earth was too risky, while others agreed it might be the only way to settle the matter. After much discussion, Kalnor made his decision. "We will send a small envoy to Earth," he announced. "They will witness human society firsthand and report back their findings." News of the Valeth's visit spread quickly across Earth. Governments worked tirelessly to prepare, ensuring the aliens would see humanity at its best. Cities were cleaned, monuments polished, and ceremonies planned to showcase cooperation and innovation. The human delegation, Daniel Harper, Rachel Lopes, and Stephen Blake, were tasked with guiding the Valeth during their stay. When the alien envoy arrived, led by Zinar, they were greeted warmly. Their first stop was a United Nations assembly, where representatives from around the world discussed global issues like climate change and poverty. Zinar watched intently as delegates debated solutions, noting how disagreements were resolved through dialogue rather than force. "This is new to us," he admitted to Daniel. "Your ability to collaborate despite differences is admirable." Next, the Valeth visited a hospital treating victims of war. They spoke with doctors and nurses working tirelessly to heal those injured in conflicts. One patient, a young girl named Lily, shared her story of survival and hope. Her courage moved even Talavik, who had accompanied the group reluctantly. For the first time, cracks appeared in her rigid skepticism. Their final destination was a memorial dedicated to lives lost in past wars. As the Valeth walked among the names engraved on walls and statues, they felt the weight of humanity's pain. A guide explained the purpose of such memorials: to honor the fallen and remind future generations of the cost of violence. Zinar placed a translucent hand on one of the stones, his expression thoughtful. During their stay, Zinar requested to meet ordinary people, hoping to hear personal stories. They encountered Emily Dawson, a teacher raising awareness about peace education in schools. She spoke passionately about teaching children empathy and understanding. Later, they met Marcus Lee, a veteran who now advocated for disarmament. His journey from soldier to peacemaker impressed the Valeth deeply. Despite these positive experiences, doubts lingered. Talavik pointed out ongoing conflicts and stockpiles of weapons, arguing that humanity's potential for violence remained evident. Back aboard their ship, the Valeth held another council meeting to discuss what they had seen. Opinions were divided, with some leaning toward trust and others urging caution. Frustrated by the lack of consensus, Kalnor proposed a final test. "We will simulate a crisis involving both our species," he said. "If humans can demonstrate their ability to resolve disputes peacefully, we will consider maintaining contact. If not, we will leave." The simulation was set to begin the next day. Both sides prepared nervously, aware that the outcome would determine the future of their relationship. Humanity's fate rested on its ability to prove that it had truly changed, and that peace was more than just a word. The simulation began aboard the Valeth ship, in a specially designed chamber that mimicked a planetary environment. The scenario was simple but challenging. A shared resource, like water or energy, was running out, and both humans and Valeth had to work together to find a solution. If they failed, the simulated planet would collapse, symbolizing the end of cooperation between their species. From the start, tensions were high. Stephen Blake took charge immediately, barking orders and trying to organize the human team. His military instincts kicked in, and he suggested dividing tasks based on rank and expertise. But the Valeth didn't respond well to his authoritative tone. Zinar stepped forward, his glowing form flickering faintly as he spoke. "We do not follow commands," he said calmly. "We seek understanding. Perhaps we should discuss our options before acting." Stephen clenched his jaw, but nodded reluctantly. He knew this wasn't a battlefield, and old habits wouldn't help here. Sitting down with the group, he forced himself to listen as Daniel Harper and Rachel Lopes explained their ideas. Daniel suggested creating a system to share the resource equally, while Rachel proposed finding an alternative source altogether. The Valeth added their own perspectives. Telavik, still skeptical of humanity, argued for strict rationing to prevent waste. Zinar, however, supported Rachel's idea of innovation, believing it aligned with the Valeth's values of harmony and sustainability. The discussion grew heated at times, with voices rising and tempers flaring. But slowly, through compromise and collaboration, a plan began to take shape. As the simulation progressed, unexpected challenges arose. A sudden storm disrupted their efforts, forcing everyone to adapt quickly. Stephen initially wanted to push ahead despite the danger, but Emily Dawson, who had joined the group, urged caution. "If we rush, we might make mistakes," she said firmly. "We need to think this through." Her words resonated with the Valeth, especially Zinar. For the first time, he saw humans prioritizing patience over action. Together, the team worked to stabilize the situation, combining human ingenuity with Valeth technology. It wasn't easy. There were moments when frustration threatened to derail their progress, but they kept moving forward. Toward the end of the simulation, a critical decision had to be made. The resource was nearly depleted, and the only way to save the planet was for one side to sacrifice part of their share. The room fell silent as everyone looked at each other. Finally, Marcus Lee, the veteran-turned-advocate, spoke up. "We'll give up more of ours," he said quietly. "It's the right thing to do." His words surprised even Stephen, who had always seen Marcus as reserved and cautious. But the gesture broke the tension. The Valeth, moved by the act of selflessness, agreed to contribute additional resources from their own reserves. Working together, they stabilized the simulation just in time, averting disaster. When the exercise ended, the room erupted in quiet relief. Kelnor entered the chamber, his expression unreadable. "You have succeeded," he said simply. "But what did you learn?" Zinar stepped forward first. "I learned that humanity is capable of cooperation, even under pressure," he admitted. "Their willingness to adapt and sacrifice shows growth." Telavik hesitated but eventually nodded. "Perhaps I misjudged them," she said softly. "They are flawed, yes, but so are we. Trust must be earned." And today, they took a step toward earning ours. Kelnor turned to the humans, his glowing eyes steady. "This test does not erase your past, nor does it guarantee our trust completely. But it proves that change is possible. We will maintain contact, though cautiously." Stephen Blake let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "We won't let you down." As the group left the chamber, there was a sense of hope in the air. The simulation had shown both sides their strengths and weaknesses, but more importantly, it had revealed the potential for unity. Humanity and the Valeth weren't so different after all, both flawed, both striving for something better. And perhaps, just perhaps, they could build a future together. The days following the simulation were a turning point for both humanity and the Valeth. The aliens, though still cautious, began to see humans in a new light. Their earlier fears about humanity's violent tendencies softened as they reflected on the cooperation and sacrifice displayed during the exercise. Back on Earth, governments and citizens alike breathed a collective sigh of relief. The crisis had been averted, for now, but everyone knew that rebuilding trust would take time. Kelnor called another meeting with the human delegation, this time aboard the Valeth ship. Daniel Harper, Rachel Lopes, and Stephen Blake arrived, unsure what to expect. The atmosphere was less tense than before, but there was still an undercurrent of uncertainty. Kelnor greeted them warmly, his glowing form steady. "Your actions during the simulation gave us hope," he said. "But hope alone is not enough. We must ensure that such cooperation continues." Rachel nodded, her voice calm but firm. "We're ready to work with you. Humanity has made mistakes, but we're committed to learning from them. Tell us what you need from us." Kelnor paused, considering his words carefully. "We will maintain contact, but it must be under strict conditions. You must show us that your progress toward peace is genuine. This means transparency, sharing information about your weapons, conflicts, and plans for the future. It also means taking steps to reduce the tools of war. Stephen Blake frowned slightly, but didn't argue. He understood the importance of compromise. "We can do that," he said, "but we'll need your help too. If we're going to build trust, it has to go both ways." Zinar, who had grown increasingly supportive of humanity, agreed. "We are willing to share our knowledge and technology to aid your efforts. Perhaps together, we can find solutions to problems that have plagued both our species." Talavik, however, remained skeptical. "Words are easy," she said sharply. "Actions are what matter. How can we be sure you won't turn against us once we leave?" Daniel stepped forward, his tone respectful but confident. "You're right. Words aren't enough. That's why we'll invite you to witness more of our world. Let us show you how we're working to create a better future. Schools teaching peace, organizations helping victims of conflict, leaders striving for unity. All these things are real, and they're happening now." Kellinor considered this proposal and eventually nodded. "Very well. We will continue observing your efforts. But remember, trust is fragile. One misstep could undo everything." As the meeting concluded, the Valith prepared to leave Earth's orbit temporarily. They'd promised to return periodically to monitor humanity's progress. Before departing, Kellinor addressed the human delegation one last time. "Your history is complex, filled with both darkness and light. But if you continue on this path, you may yet prove yourselves worthy of the trust we seek to give." Back on Earth, news of the Valith's decision sparked a wave of optimism. Governments announced plans to dismantle certain weapon systems voluntarily, inspired by the aliens' commitment to peace. Public discussions shifted from fear of invasion to excitement about collaboration. People around the world began imagining what could be achieved if humanity and the Valith worked together. Daniel Harper and Rachel Lopes published a joint report detailing their experiences with the Valith. In it, they emphasized the importance of empathy, understanding, and honesty. "We cannot change the past," Daniel wrote, "but we can shape the future. By facing our flaws and striving for growth, we honor not only ourselves but also those who came before us." Stephen Blake found himself reflecting on the journey. For years, he had focused on protecting humanity from external threats. Now, he realized that the greatest challenge lay within, learning to trust others and work toward common goals. It was a lesson he vowed to carry forward. In classrooms like Emily Dawson's, teachers used the story of first contact to inspire students. This is proof that even when things seem impossible, understanding can be found. Emily told her class one morning. Outside the window, the sky stretched endlessly, a reminder of the vast possibilities ahead. As the Valith ship disappeared into the stars, humanity stood united in its determination to prove that peace was more than just an idea. It was a choice, one they were ready to make, again and again. Months passed after the Valith departed, leaving Earth behind to reflect on the lessons learned. Humanity had been given a second chance, a fragile but meaningful opportunity to prove that it could grow beyond its violent past. Governments around the world took bold steps to honor their promises. Weapons of war were dismantled, and resources once spent on armies were redirected toward education, healthcare, and technology. The United Nations became a symbol of unity, hosting regular discussions with representatives from every corner of the globe. Emily Dawson stood in her classroom one morning, gazing out at her students. On the board behind her was a simple phrase: "Peace begins with understanding." She smiled as she turned to face them. "Do you remember the story of the Valith?" she asked. The children nodded eagerly. It was a tale they had heard many times. The first contact, the misunderstandings, and how humanity worked together to earn the aliens' trust. "Why do you think the Valith stayed?" Emily continued. A boy named Sam raised his hand. "Because we showed them we could work together," he said confidently. Emily nodded. "Exactly. But it wasn't just about working together. It was about being honest, even when it was hard. We didn't hide our mistakes. Instead, we faced them and promised to do better." in cities and towns across the planet. Similar conversations were happening. People talked about the importance of empathy, not just for others but for themselves. They realized that growth wasn't about perfection, it was about effort. Museums dedicated to peace opened their doors, showcasing stories of reconciliation and cooperation. One exhibit featured artifacts from the Valith encounter, including recordings of Kalinor's words and images of the simulation that brought humans and aliens closer. Meanwhile, the Valith kept their promise to return periodically. Each visit deepened the bond between the two species. Zin-R became a familiar face, often joining Daniel Harper and Rachel Lobst to discuss new projects aimed at fostering understanding. Together, they launched initiatives to study Earth's ecosystems, develop sustainable energy sources, and improve global communication systems. Taylavik remained cautious but participated in these efforts, her skepticism slowly giving way to cautious optimism. One day, during a meeting aboard the Valith ship, Kalinor addressed the human delegation. "You have made remarkable progress," he said. "Your actions speak louder than your words ever could. Though challenges remain, we believe you are on the right path." Stephen Blake, now retired from active duty, attended the meeting as an advisor. He felt a sense of pride hearing those words. For years, he had feared that humanity's flaws would define it forever. Now, he saw proof that change was possible. "Thank you," he said simply. "We couldn't have done it without your guidance, or your patience." Kalinor smiled faintly, his glowing eyes softening. "Patience is a virtue we all must practice. Just as you strive to understand us, we strive to understand you. This journey has taught us much, not only about humanity, but about ourselves." As the meeting ended, the Valith gifted humanity a small device capable of detecting signs of life on distant planets. "Use this wisely," Kalinor said. "Perhaps one day, you will reach out to other species as we reached out to you." Back on Earth, the device sparked excitement and curiosity. Scientists began studying it, hoping to unlock its secrets. Meanwhile, ordinary people found inspiration in the gesture, seeing it as a sign of hope for the future. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that knowledge filled hearts with both humility and wonder. On her last day before summer break, Emily Dawson handed each of her students a small notebook. "Write down your dreams for the future," she told them. "Dream big, because the sky isn't the limit anymore. Someday you might help build bridges, not just between humans and Valith, but with others out there waiting to meet us." As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Emily watched her students file out, their notebooks clutched tightly in their hands. Outside, the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but humanity had taken its first steps towards something greater, a future shaped not by fear or conflict, but by courage and connection. And in that moment, anything seemed possible.